Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. Thank you for reminding me. I was thinking coming up here to get everything set up, don't forget to record, and then, you do.
It's easy to do.
Yeah. I had a really simple question I'm trying to find which organizer it was on. And you'll probably say, oh, that should be a simple one. But on the intro to electro post
Uh-huh.
lecture review, number 12, it just says modality that uses DC current. Uh,
Uh-huh. We talked about that the other day. That's iontophoresis.
okay,
And
that's
that
what
will not
it's not going to be on the.
specifically be on this test,
Okay,
but it was just, we knew the question was going to come up. Pretty much all the currents that are really on this test, you need to know they're alternating current. So what does alternating current mean?
it means you'll
It
have a.
changes polarity from
Yeah.
negative to positive.
Negative to positive polarity, exactly. So if we gave you a specific waveform, think back to your last quiz before that. If it says sinusoidal, what does that mean?
That's
It's just a fancy
interferential.
name for,
It's interferential?
so sinusoidal just it's a fancy name for alternating current.
Okay.
Okay. So that just tells you the waveform. So interferential does use that, yes. What would be distinct about interferential versus, say, Russian? Because Russian is also going to be that pretty much all of them are that sinusoidal wave, that alternating current wave.
Would it be the phases? So like the Russian is the polyphasic.
It is, and it's going to be a whole bunch of them compacted really close together, and then a break. And then a whole bunch of them really packed together, and then a break. Because what are we using Russian for? Like with all these,
Muscle contraction.
Oh no, muscle contraction, sorry.
exactly. So if I were to, you need to kind of have categories in your brain at this point in time. So interferential and pre-mod are incredibly similar because what is their common goal? What do we use that for?
Pain relief.
Yeah.
Pain, exactly. Okay. What would be the difference between interferential and pre-mod? There's not much, but there is a big one.
The amount of electrodes you have, the quadrupolar for interferential,
Monopolar.
and the monopolar or bipolar for the pre-mod.
Right. Interferential is never going to use more than 2 pads. Pre-mod is never going to use more than 2 pads. Interferential is always going to have 4 pads. Now, what are those? Do you remember how we set those pads up with interferential?
Dispersive pad and active pad.
No.
Crisscross.
Crisscross, exactly. So you have one channel, 1 pad here, 1 pad here, same channel, okay? Another pad here, okay? What do we know about their frequencies of these 2 channels of sinusoidal waves?
They're going to be pretty high so that they can not be as, I lost my word, but it's going to be a high frequency.
It is a high frequency. They're both different frequencies though. Sometimes those frequencies overlap and it makes it exponentially higher, and then sometimes they completely cross out. So they have 2 channels, sinusoidal, different frequencies. Okay. So
now,
go ahead.
I have a little bit of, I'm a little confused between when you said that you have electrode that is active, the other one is dispersed. So my understanding is that the active is going to play on the muscle belly, and the dispersed is going to be on the insertion portion of the muscle. So
Okay, so that is true, but when we're talking about interferential, we're talking about two separate things. You're talking about for a muscle contraction. Interferential is not going to be used for a
Yeah.
muscle contraction. So I think you're getting confused about that. So let's just make sure we're solid on that, and then we'll move through all these different things today. So everybody
Okay.
knows the difference. You're okay with interferential, you're okay with pre-mod, and you understand the common, like what that is for. That is for pain relief. So if you see something in a test question that says pain relief, like where should your mind immediately go?
Either one of those.
Differential.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Differential pre-mod.
Exactly. If it says to elicit a muscle contraction or for strengthening, where should your mind go?
Russian.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Russian, that NIMS, you might see the term biphasic. But I think I went with Russian or NIMS in the test. So if you see those terms, your brain should immediately jump to, we're talking contraction here.
With that said, is it because of the way that they're set up?
It is because the way they're set up, it is because of their frequency, and more importantly, it's because of that pulse duration or that width, that pulse width.
So,
Because-
meaning one, like if it's pain, you're trying to do more sensory?
So let's go back to that. If we're talking interferential, what are the two theories that operates off of?
Gate
Gate theory?
and endogenous opiate.
Control. Okay, and that's going to be sensory. And what frequency range would we look for that?
80 to 100.
Not close, but 82,
200.
100.
200. Yes, 80 to 200 is going to be that sensory, that gate control. What is the other option that interferential pre-mod gives us?
1 to 5.
1 to 5. And what theory does that operate off of?
Opioid.
Endogenous.
Endogenous opiate.
Yes, that opiate. Good. So when we're looking at Russian, what's the frequency?
1 to 5.
Oh. Russian, that
More-
NIMS?
Is it
That's more for your,
50 to
100,
80.
105?
There you go.
yeah. And then that's the most common, but it can be 1 to 120.
No, the most common.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait, which one was? I'm sorry.
That was on the NIMS. Was that on NIMS?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Double checking just to make sure. I don't use NIMS that much.
Was it 105, 100 to 105?
That was the most common, but
Yeah.
it was 1 to 120.
No, the most common.
Yeah.
I think, Kristen, you're talking about the high voltage pulse current where it has the
Yeah, I
option.
think you are too. I'm sitting here looking at this. NIMS is 50 to 80.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. NIMS is 50 to 80. But the pulse width, that duration, that is how long that current is for that impulse. That's what stimulates that muscle. So that's why we have two options. If they're not really getting a muscle contraction, what would be the first thing you might consider doing if it's not contracting?
You could increase the length of the pulse width, or you could increase the intensity,
So those are excellent choices.
but not both.
Not both. Those are excellent choices, but that may not be the first thing I would do.
Location of where the
Maybe
pads
pulse
are.
width.
Yeah.
You got it. I might be looking for that motor point, so I might move it around a bit. Typically, where would I find that motor point?
Muscle belly.
about that mid length. And since you guys know origin insertion now, we're really looking mid muscle belly, but to move that electrode around just a wee bit, you may find that contraction immediately kicks in because you're right over the motor point. So moving the location of the electrode, if I'm going for a contraction, is my first option. Then you're right, Erin, you have a couple choices. You can either bump up the intensity, or they may not like you bumping up that intensity, but increasing that pulse duration, that pulse width, they're the same thing. That's another really good choice because it makes that pressure, that electricity, that juice is going to that muscle a little bit longer, so it has a little bit longer to depolarize and instigate that set of contractions.
I had a question.
Sure.
In reference, like in the grand scheme of things, I'm trying to find a correlation between the pulse per second and the duration for modalities across the board. Is it safe to say that if the pulse per second is a higher frequency, that the duration is going to be a lower number? Or is it going to be a higher number? Or what's the trade-off between those two? Is there one?
So pulse per second is your hertz, is what? This is just one of those things you kind of just have to memorize. Know that 1 to 5 hertz is going to be that opiate. That 80 to 200 is going to be that gate control. We're looking at 50 to 80, so we're at muscle contractions, so we're not quite hitting that 80 to 200 range. So it might help to make you kind of like a timeline, so to speak, but not really a timeline, but a pulses per second line so that you can see, okay, this one kicks in here, and then this one kicks in here, and then this one kicks in here. That might be helpful. So if we're on the NIMS, what would my on-off setting be if I were looking for edema control?
1 to 1.
1 to 1, beautiful. Yes, because typically we're going to set it up on opposing muscle groups. So we're going to contract one, it's going to relax, we're going to contract the opposite. So they're just going to back and forth create that pumping mechanism. What about for endurance?
1 to 2.
1 to 2, beautiful. What about for strengthening?
It's 1 to 3
No,
or 1 to 5.
1 to 5.
Yeah, 1 to 3, 1 to 5. I think I'm pretty sure it's 1 to 5 is what I went with on the test. I did not make it where you'd have to distinguish between the two and choose. It'll be clear cut. But yes. Why would
What's
you?
the difference between that then and the 1 to 9? I don't know where I'm getting the 9 from.
I don't either. The only thing I can think of is maybe when we were talking about a minute. If you've got
That's it.
10 seconds on, 50 seconds off, how much together does that make?
60
1 minute,
yeah.
right? Okay. So a typical treatment session would be about how long?
10 minutes.
Yeah.
10 minutes, okay? So during that 10-minute period, how many strong contractions would you expect?
10.
Beautiful.
10.
Okay. So it's just kind of applying that to what you know about time. Would you consider a ramp up, especially with the muscle contraction?
Yes. 1 to 2.
Yeah, why? 1 to 2 seconds, why?
It
Well,
doesn't.
because you're trying to strengthen it, right?
Trying to strengthen it, but it's hard to go 0 to 60 just immediately. It's just not quite as comfortable.
So it's a slow.
If we add that ramp, so it gives you a little time to kind of acclimate to it. It just makes it more comfortable. Now with the NIMS, Did you guys talk anything about the functional electrical stimulation? Like with the weak dorsiflexors, the specific, the way you could set that up?
There was one
The
example,
FES?
patients that have foot drop.
Do you remember that?
In that swing phase to help that tibialis anterior contract.
Okay, good. So what initials did I call it?
Can you repeat that again?
We had a little trouble here.
Something to go look up.
Yeah, it was really laggy. I couldn't hear what you said.
So the E-stim to like activate the dorsiflexors during a specific time frame.
Is it?
Functional electric stimulation, FES.
Good. Yes, so that would be the FES, right?
Is that where the guy's walking? The PowerPoint where he's walking?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Roseberry, I don't know if you can hear us, but it looks like you froze out. You're back.
I can hear y'all.
Okay.
Yeah. Do make sure you know your contraindications or precautions. All right.
So I have a question, and this
Um,
is a question about
Understand what I'm.
oh.
Go ahead.
When it comes to indications, is that why we don't have like a PowerPoint that says it gives us a little more latitude to figure it out on our own? Do you see what I mean? Like
we talked about that at the
indications for each
very, very beginning. When I say, well, what is the indication for pre-minor interferential?
Pain relief.
Pain. Okay. What is the indication for neuromuscular electrical stimulation?
Muscle contraction.
Am I the only one? I'm having
Very
a hard time
good.
hearing.
What is the indication for high volt? Like
Tissue healing.
Wound healing.
what is the indication for high volt?
Tissue healing.
Yes. So there are indications why you use one versus the other. Yes, exactly. So there are definitely okay. Intro to electro lecture. Do you guys remember what insulators and conductors are and what body parts that might be affiliated with?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Do you know the difference between an open and a closed circuit?
Can you
Yes.
go over that?
Okay. What's the difference between an open and a closed circuit?
Isn't it the open one is getting out of the battery and then
What is
in
the
the body, and the closed one, it goes from the body back into the battery or generator?
All right, so an open
Complete-
circuit is like a light switch. It turns on and off.
There's no
A
breaks in the
closed
circuit.
is what?
No breaks in the circuit.
Yes, exactly. Right, exactly.
Oh, I was thinking about terminals, right? I was getting confused.
Do those circuits relate to like monophasic, biphasic, or does that have nothing to do with it?
Nothing to do with it. It just means if it's a closed circuit, is it continually looping? Like, does your brain ever really truly shut off?
No.
No, thankfully.
Yes. Thankfully.
Thankfully.
No, I maybe could argue that point, but we'll go
Tonight.
with thankfully it won't.
We won't. So if an atom gains or loses electrons, what's that process called?
Ionization.
Ionization.
Absolutely. What is a cathode?
Negative ion.
Negative.
Okay, what is an anode?
Positive.
Okay. With when does the color of the electrode matter? There's really only one time that the colors matter when it comes to
The DC
setup.
clock?
Nope.
When you're doing monopolar.
Okay. Monopolar what?
Pulse rate.
Or it could be bipolar. Or
When you're only doing one
you-
like charge.
what
You
specific
don't want
type
only
of
negative or positive.
E-stim. What specific type of E-stim?
when we do MENS or the HVCP,
The high volt.
for the
High volt. Yes.
tissue.
When we're doing tissue healing, that is when the positive and the negative polarity, the colors of the electrodes do matter. Outside of that, it's not so much of an issue. What would be positive? What color? Red is
Red.
positive.
Yeah.
Mhm. Black is negative.
So just to be clear, you said that the high is where the color matters.
High volt is where the color matters, yes.
Okay.
Where we're doing tissue healing. And there's several different slides in there that says, okay, with a positive polarity in your wound bed or a negative polarity, which one do you use first? Typically with a more
Negative.
acute wound.
Negative.
The negative. Yes. So I would spend a couple minutes making sure I understand what's going on from a physiological standpoint when I've got that negative electrode in or around that wound bed. And I would understand when I flip that, what's going on from a physiological standpoint with that tissue healing if I flip the polarity.
Is this too when it talks about the if you start seeing no improvement,
Yeah.
Yes.
then you okay.
So
And then
generally,
the positive helps
generally
grow
we-
bacteria and the negative kills it.
yes, yes. So generally we're going to leave it maybe 3 weeks, but if we stop seeing an improvement in that wound, and what do we mean by improvement?
Decrease in size of the wound.
Yeah, exactly. So as long as we're seeing it improve, get smaller, then we can stay with which polarity we're looking at. If it stops improving, what do we do?
Swap.
Switch.
Swap. Okay. Once again, we go that continuum till it stops improving. What do we do?
Switch again. Or swap.
Flip. Yeah. Exactly.
I
Uh-huh.
I think I answered that question. There was a question like that on the quiz. I don't think I answered it correctly. Well, I think I answered it correctly. I don't know if it was
I'm
marked.
glad you said that. I
Can we
need to
go
bring-
over the quiz?
Yeah, I forgot all about that. Let me go find that. We do need to go over the quiz. Give me just a minute. So you guys, let's go keep asking some questions. By definition, what is DC current?
So direct current.
Okay, one direction, two direction,
Unidirectional.
One direction.
one direction. Very good. Okay. Is it goes from the cathode to the anode or the anode to the cathode? Another quick thing, what happens with like charges?
They like
Repel.
charges, they repel.
Absolutely. What happens with opposite charges?
The attract.
Attract.
They,
Right.
that's right. When I am manipulating parameters, let's just say I'm changing pulse width. Let's say I'm changing magnitude. What do we call that? It's one word.
Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
If I am changing some parameters like the intensity, the pulse width, the frequency, there's one word that kind of encapsulates all those changes. What is that called? Starts with an M.
Oh, so not vectors.
Modulate.
Ah, that's right. Modulation. Very good. So when it comes to modulation, I can do a vector sweep. What does that mean?
I just think about, isn't that the underwear?
Nope,
No?
nope.
Or you
Close.
don't want to get,
It sweeps the whole treatment area. Not
It
just
does. So what does it give you? And a
A
little bit
wider-
larger. Yes, it gives you a little larger. So know the difference between a vector sweep and a frequency sweep, which is what you're thinking about, Kristen.
okay.
So they don't, the tissue that get used to, right?
Right. The frequency sweep is changing that how fast that pulses per second are, those hertz. And so if that is modulated or kind of flexes higher and lower, then that's when your body does not adapt to it. So it keeps you from being comfortable with your underwear on, you forget about it.
So frequency sweep is what decreases adaptation.
Absolutely.
And the vector sweep causes a larger treatment area.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. So if I'm looking, think about if I am adjusting the intensity on a patient, what would I be doing to that waveform? I'm not changing the shape of it, but what am I changing?
The
Frequency? No.
The amplitude of it, exactly. So just like if I yell at you louder, I change the amplitude of that sound wave. If I turn that intensity up, I'm going to make that amplitude of that wave higher. Going back to current density, if we have, first of all, are y'all clear on monopolar, bipolar, quadrupolar? Okay, monopolar is very misleading, okay? If I gave you a size of an electrode and I said it's a 1x1 and the other one is a 1x3, what should that tell you about the setup immediately? Are they equal?
No.
It is monopolar, exactly, because they're not equal. So in that example, which would have the greatest current density?
the smaller one.
Smaller.
The smaller one. Very good. Okay. Bipolar or quadrupolar, we know there's 2, we know there's 4, but what is the key of that? They
They're-
have to be what?
They're all
Equal
equal.
cross.
size.
They have to be equal in size. Yes,
Oh,
they have to be equal in size. Monopolar, they're not going to be equal. That's where you've got one that's larger than the other. But the bipolar and the quadrupolar, they have to be equal in size. So if I'm putting those electrodes on a muscle, just theoretically, which direction would I want that to go?
Longitudinal.
longitudinal.
Yeah, or parallel with those muscle fibers. Yes. Okay. All right, let me see. Bryce, do I have privileges?
Can I ask one quick question about the on the intro to electrotherapy? It talks about modality that uses DC current. That is ionophoresis.
It is.
Okay, and we will learn more about that as we. I mean, I know we did, but we'll like actually do it. Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We got to get in line though, people. It's just, yeah. You will have a CSC on iontophoresis. So yes, you will be doing it.
Okay.
I've made
So can you explain about the active and disperse?
Okay. What do you want to know about it? Are they
Well, I
different
just
in
want
size?
to know. Wait, sorry, Mike's gonna start.
The dispersive one is supposed to be larger than the active one, correct?
Correct.
And it's supposed to like pull the current to the dispersive, right?
Correct.
Only in monopolar? Is that safe to say?
Yes. I think that's pretty safe to say. Yeah. And we're going to really worry about that setup with the wound healing because that's where we're going to typically see that. So even if we have a wound that's a circle, let's just say, and in your mind, superimpose an electrode at each point, north, east, south, and west. Okay. So you've got a quadrupolar setup because off to the side, we're going to have a dispersive. That cumulative size of the area of the active electrodes, the north, south, east, and west, that area is going to be smaller, should be smaller than the area of the dispersive that's off to the side. And the way that's set up is, you know, we may have in the wound bed, we may have a negative electrode. We may have, those are negative. Off to the side, the dispersive will be positive, and that's where it's pulling, that current is pulling and giving those properties. Okay. All right, let's see. Can I share my screen? I think I can.
Yeah, I made you host.
Beautiful. All right. Okay, let's take a peek. Over. Okay. Here we go. Electrode, what you got? First one.
Monopolar.
Monopolar, yes. Okay. We are dealing with wound healing. That means we're going to have an active and a dispersive. We know that those are monopolar. And this is kind of the setup I was talking about. We may actually have 4 electrodes. We might have one at north, south, east, and west as your active electrodes, but off to the side would be your dispersive. And that's still monopolar, because they're not equal. Okay. Number 2. What should 80 to 200 tell you right now? What is that?
That's the contractions.
Nope.
That's sensory.
Sensory, that is the gate control theory. Yes. So that one's sensory. What's 1 to 5? And it's pulses per second and hertz, the same thing.
Yes.
It is. Okay, so what's 1 to 5?
Muscle contraction.
That's the opiate.
Nope.
That's the opiate.
Opiate.
Chronic.
Homogeneous.
Yeah. So right now, those first 2 are dealing with interferential current. So we know we're not talking about low intensity, right? So we've ruled those 2 out. So now we're just between subsensory amplitude and the 100 to 200 volts. Which one is it?
Subsensory.
Oh, the 100 to 200.
It is subsensory amplitude. Low intensity direct current. All those are subsensory amplitudes, meaning what?
Unable to
I
feel
don't feel it.
Yeah, they're not really going to feel anything. Okay. The 100 to 200 volts is that amplitude for the high volt. All right, question 3.
It's the cathodal.
It is the cathode. Yes. Any questions on that? Okay. Question 4.
It's the do you
Do
want
the second one.
Yeah, the sensory signals.
It is the second one. Yes, because that's what we're doing with that gate control is we're stimulating those faster nerve fibers. So essentially it's a race to the brain and the brain's going to read which one it gets there first. And so at that gate, it lets the faster fibers through and it inhibits those signals from those nociceptors getting to the brain. Good. All right, number 5. This is kind of what we talked about earlier. Make sure you know the difference in physiologically what's happening with positive, what's happening with negative.
So it increases the macrophages.
Macrophages.
Okay.
It eats the bacteria.
Okay. All right. Oh, the skin's battery.
Negative on the outside.
Negative.
That's
The
false.
exterior. Negative. That would be false. Correct. All right. That on-off cycle for edema. I think we
1
talked
to
about
1.
this already tonight. Yep. 1 to 1, 10 to 10. Good. All right. E-stem for subsensory. Is Russian going to be subsensory?
No.
No.
It is not. Is interferential going to be subsensory?
Nope.
Y'all should have felt that when you put it on. So there's 2 gone. High volt or men's?
Men's.
Men's. Yeah. All right. Contraindication for high volt. It says high volt, but it's really going to apply to all of them. This really should not be a bunch of different lists you have to remember. It's consistent across the board for pretty much all these electrical modalities. Contraindication.
Would be the-
Active bleeding.
Active bleeding.
The bleeding. That's right. Over anesthetic skin, you got to be careful with it, but you can still do it. Over thick adipose tissue, why might that not be a great choice, but it's not necessarily a contraindication?
Because it's an insulator.
It is. It's an insulator. They may not feel it. You can crank it up till the cows come home, and they may not get what you're really wanting to get. And then that wound totally covered by the eschar, it's not a contraindication, but it is a precaution. All right, number 10, ground fault.
See?
The third,
Protect against.
to protect against excess current in the circuit when overloaded.
That's exactly right. Good. All right, pulse width. This one's come up, I think, on 2 tests so far. We're still kind of struggling with this concept, so I wouldn't be surprised if I saw it again. So let's make sure you're clear on it. What is pulse width?
Is it the second one?
It is, Diana. Very good. It is the second one. So if I'm tapping, this is an electrical stimulation, I'm tapping. That tapping is the frequency. How many pulses per second am I tapping? Now, if I were to slow-mo that down, each tap, the length that it delivers that current for that one individual tap is the pulse width.
Why would it not be A?
Because that also includes the time that it's delivering that current and the rest break back to the beginning current. That is the pulse and that interpulse duration and the pulse width.
Yeah, I think I was thinking of like a.
So that is actually 2.
Mhm.
Do you see the difference? The pulse width is the actual time that it's delivering that current for that individual pulse. The first one includes the interpulse duration as well. Good question. All right, so if y'all miss this one, I'm going to be upset.
Mhm.
All right, 12. This is also one we've seen several times. Probably see it again.
A,
Pulse width?
increase the pulse width.
I
Yeah,
would say the last
in-
one.
Mhm.
yeah, increase that pulse width. Yes.
When
Good.
would there be like a correct time to reverse the polarity? You're just doing like one polarity.
So reversing the polarity, that would be go
That's
back
for
to that wound healing.
healing.
The one
Yep,
healing.
That's
yeah.
when we would do that. Okay. All right, 13.
B.
The active electrode.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Yes. Okay. The larger and the dispersive really should be the same. Okay, 14.
True.
Okay, yes, it would. This is kind of what we talked about. We're going to go, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it's working, we're going to continue using the setup until it doesn't work. And then we're going to flip the polarity. And we're going to use that till it works or quits working. And then we'll flip the polarity again if we need to. Okay, last one. Can y'all see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's true.
It is true. Yes. That active electrode does not have to be inside the wound bed, but it is an option. Okay. It is an option. The dispersive is always going to be away from the active, and that current is going to be what kind of helps pull that wound together and helps close it off.
Isn't that the setup for that monopolar and not bipolar?
It is the setup for monopolar. It sure is.
But it says in a bipolar configuration.
But it can be just 2 electrodes also with the wound healing, because Ms. Prado talked about she could use an active electrode inside the wound bed, and we could also use just one, the dispersive on the outside.
But isn't bipolar when they're the same size, and with tissue healing, you would have the monopolar where the smaller is in the bed and the larger is out, the dispersive?
The dispersive would be outside. Yes. Oh, I see what you're saying.
I mean,
You said it was not true bipolar, but they still call it bipolar. Isn't that correct or no?
That is correct, but I can see where that
That's a
question
trick
would be.
question.
yeah.
I think I
was
wrote false on
not
this one because of what Bryce is saying.
It wasn't designed to be that way, but I can see where it would be. So it's not a true, I need to make a note of that.
I think for number 14, I put true for it, but I went back and looked at my answers, and I think it marked it wrong.
Okay, I need to check that because I don't grade them. It's auto graded.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask about the grading. Mine doesn't even show up on Blackboard.
Yours is not showing up?
No, like I completed it and then I went back and it's like not even there anymore.
Huh. Are y'all having the same issues?
Mine
Yeah.
isn't in there either.
I don't in the grade book.
Yeah.
It's not in the grade book?
The first one
I
is.
just, like deleted it from Blackboard altogether. Like there's no like quiz option anymore either.
Yeah, mine's the same way.
Huh. I'll have to check that because
I was kind of scared. I was like, oh no, what
that
happened?
should not. No, that shouldn't be that way. So just a dumb question. The first quiz we had like 25 questions. The second one we have 15. Clearly they count off more if you miss one. Do you like more questions or less questions?
It doesn't matter much to me, but I think it's a little more stressful when you have less questions and they count more against.
I like
you.
having more too, because then you have like more examples of how they're going to be asked for the exam.
True.
Even if I don't like answering more questions, there's still like examples of how to.
I agree. I think that's a good. It just gets you more ready to see questions on the exam.
I think even
So
more
what's a good
questions on the
number?
exam, that helps me. Sometimes I'll see some of those questions and they help me with other questions. And the same thing for quizzes too.
Yes. Agree.
All right, so quiz 2, it's unfortunately still in my grade book, which is really a good thing. I'm not sure why it's not showing for you guys, but you all have grades. And I don't think I've told y'all yet, so we're gonna have 6 quizzes. We'll drop the lowest quiz grade, just as a FYI as the course goes on.
Thank you.
Yeah, everybody needs a little grace card. I mean, they're only worth 2% anyway, but still. Okay, I don't think we've talked about the pain control. Do you guys know, we did sort of talk about the difference between the opiate and the gate control. Do you know the difference between acute versus chronic pain?
Yes.
Okay. Do you
I'm gonna
know?
have to. Can I? I'm gonna have to drop off, but Bryce, will you send this out this evening? I mean, no pressure. Just curious if you'll send this out this evening or
Yeah.
sometime tomorrow morning.
I was going to, yes.
Okay, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So do you know which fibers are stimulated, what your nociceptor fibers, which ones those are?
Is A delta
Mhm.
and C?
The
Yes,
A delta is the fast and the C is the slow.
yes,
Hmm.
yes. All right. Let me just flip through. This really quickly.
Was Tuesday's test all multiple choice?
It is all multiple choice. Yes,
Awesome.
yes. All right, with interferential current, how do we set that up? I know we talked about the crisscross. What would be in the center of that crisscross?
The treatment area?
Yeah.
The treatment area. Yeah.
Payments.
And we can, remember, we can change that vector scan to make it just, instead of exactly where it crosses, incorporate just a little bit larger treatment area if we have a little bit more diffuse pain. There is a question on the test about the CPT codes and billing. Let me just go ahead and tell you right up front, it's not a trick question. You don't have to memorize the CPT codes. They are given to you. That is correct information. You just need to be able to differentiate between, is this manual or is this unattended? And is it 1 unit versus 2 units?
Like we're doing the 15, it's like the 15.
The 15-minute rule, yes. Yes.
The fifth, like 7 minutes is your scene. Or am I overcomplicating that?
8 minutes is your benchmark.
Okay.
So if I had a treatment that was 28 minutes, how many units would that be?
2.
2. Yeah.
2 units, yeah.
If it was 22 minutes, it would be 1.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be a clear-cut question, but don't wig out when you see the CPT codes there and go, I don't remember if those are right. Those are right. I did not do that. If you're going to do the muscle contraction, we can do that to elicit a contraction. Why might we use something for co-contraction?
Synchronize the muscle contractions.
Yeah. So like, you know how we've talked about the scapula and stuff, how if it's not stable, could we do kind of a front and a back co-contracting at the same time to increase stability? Yeah,
Yes.
we could. All right, let me just, I'm almost through it. So if we're doing that, NIMS, what's that patient gonna feel?
Fatigue afterwards because they're getting muscle contractions.
Good. What about during the treatment? Like while it's stemming?
Have muscle contractions?
That muscle contraction, yeah. If they can tolerate it, we want the muscle contraction. That's the whole point. If they can't tolerate it, you know, we've got some parameters we can manipulate, modulate to see. All right, anything else that you guys have questions about? We have covered, if
A
not
lot.
99% of the test, we have covered probably 100% of the test today.
Awesome.
Okay, there really shouldn't be any surprises.
Yes, that's
Maybe
good.
one surprise, but I don't think so. I think we covered everything. Because I just wanted to flip through the lectures and make sure you guys were good on the important stuff. Any questions that you can think of?
How many questions is the test?
50.
Thank you.
Welcome. Like I said, make sure you know, like interferential pre-mod, like what is that for? What is high volt for? What is NIMS for? Because a lot of times, just knowing those simple things will direct you through the question. Like I said, you might consider doing a little time, not really a timeline, but a Hertz line where you put, that way you can visually see which modalities kind of kick in at a certain frequency. That might be beneficial. Know those positive, negative polarities, the healing things. Know your contraindications or precautions. Anything else? No? Feel
No.
good?
I think
Good?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yes.
for going over all this.
Yeah.
Thank
And
Oh, you're welcome.
your weekend out to do this.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's all good. So I think about the, like I said, not the night before, but the 2 night before. I kind of like this setup better just because it gives y'all some time.
Yeah.
So we'll just kind of keep that in the back of our mind for anything in the future we might need to do.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. If you have questions, email me, text me. Y'all have my number, I think. I work tomorrow too, but I'll get to them eventually. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.